Welcome back to my channel. I'm Iris. This is Madrona's Pulse Teaching. This is Finnegan sitting in my lap. I'm trying to film this outside and this is like my third or fourth time trying to film this, and he is barking up a storm. So we're going to try and have a little lap puppy during this. I hope this finds you doing well. Whew, what a weekend. I just got home after being in the car all day. I got my reds back, as you will see, though they look kind of violet in this light, which I'm into. And we're going to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So we're talking around, depends when you're watching this, but the week of July 8th through July 15th. And we do have some major archetype energy speaking with us this week. And so the biggest piece is that Mars is going to make its conjunction with Uranus. This is happening at 26 degrees of Taurus. And this is also significant because there is someone who lives at 26 degrees of Taurus, and that is the fixed star Algol. So I want to talk a bit about this energy. There's a few other things that are happening during this week, such as Venus leaving Cancer and entering Leo, and that's a very significant move because it means that she talks to our retrograde Neptune and our retrograde Pluto. So I want to talk about that as well. But first, let's talk about this Mars-Uranus conjunction at 26 degrees of Taurus. And so this is something that's building all week. It's really going to start building around the 11th, but then the 13th and the 14th are when the intensity is building the most, and then it's exact on the 15th of July. Okay, and so again, this is in Taurus. Mars is moving through Taurus. Uranus has been in Taurus for ages. We just had that conjunction of Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus. And their conjunctive star Algol, I think it's really important to talk about this because there's a heck of a lot out there on that good old internet about Algol, and that deserves to be talked about. So, firstly, let's talk about Uranus and Mars coming together, so, and in Taurus, this is big energy. It can be disruptive. The important thing to remember is that if this energy is building and you're feeling it, this is in Taurus, we need to ground the body. Literally, especially if you're feeling it a lot, this is bare feet on earth, this is lying down on the grass, this is slowing down. This is really energy that you don't want to just kind of speed up and try and just burst through it. It's really energy that the nervous system needs, the body needs to slow down so that the nervous system can reset, and then it can just be present with whatever's unfolding. But if we try and push through this type of energy that's building, that could not go so well. And it's just that it's not what the energy is asking for. Okay. And also remembering that Uranus is wild card energy. So we never exactly know how it's going to unfold. There's certain, of course, there's certain places we can look for Uranian energy and how it manifests, but it's ultimately wild card energy. And so especially if this energy begins to feel disruptive, it's because something wants to break free. It's because something wants to be liberated. Something in the Taurus realms of your chart, body, psyche, life, around 26 degrees, and it wants to be free. And ultimately, that's a really good thing because Uranus is all about authenticity. So especially when we're focusing on our lives for spiritual growth, for healing, for self-inquiry, we're really feeling into the body here and feeling the energy build throughout the week, and we will feel it build, and then really trying to co-create with what is it that wants to break free. And if there's things coming into your kind of head and they're drifting through, or you're getting sensations in your body, you want to pay attention to that because most likely that's part of what it is. Now, conjunct Algol. So Algol is a fixed star that is associated with the archetype of Medusa, literally Medusa's head. So if you don't know Medusa, most of us hear the myth or we see some of the films that were about the heroes and the men. And Medusa is mostly known for being this Gorgon head, which is a woman monster in the ancient world with snakes coming out of her head. And her superpower is that if you Look her in the eyes, she turns you to stone. Now, we pause. We pause when we talk about Medusa because, you know, it is important to acknowledge that Algol has a history, especially when we look into traditional astrology, of being the demon star, of, you know, kind of this vindictive, very dark energy. And that is part of the social consciousness and collective consciousness that the archetype was co-creating throughout history. And we evolve because Medusa has a whole other story that very rarely gets told. It has been starting. There is this, some of you probably know that there's this huge trend in literature and pop literature right now of really telling the ancient female stories of the Greek and Roman myths from the female perspective. And so there's actually several books out on Medusa that are some of them are kind of comical, some of them are not, but telling it from her side. And so what gets left out of Medusa's story? What do you know? Medusa was a beautiful woman, a young, beautiful woman. Some say of an oracle, and one day a male god rapes her. And he does that in the temple of Athena. And Athena gets angry, and she takes her anger out on, as often happened in these myths, on the innocent victim of a woman, and turns her into a Gorgon. And then she lives with these Gorgon sisters. And again, I totally recommend some of those new books that have come out because they're very fun and you get to be with the Gorgons. And then most of us know her because Perseus comes and kills her and chops her head off, and then her head becomes a weapon, okay? And we can really see how this is a story that grew for thousands of years through a patriarchal lens, an incredibly gendered lens. And in the spirit of Mars and Uranus, I'm gonna let Finnegan break free. And this is such a moment of reclaiming. And Medusa is a story of power and reclaiming and allowing that we get to acknowledge the parts of our stories, individually and collectively, all genders, that were silenced, that have been silenced. The way that our identity has been put into a box and limited and often turned into something negative. You know, of course, there's similarities with Black Moon Lilith in terms of the way that the myth has been told. And ultimately, you know, when we work with Medusa, it is about reclaiming. And Algol, especially through an evolutionary lens, brings us into a place of reclaiming the parts of ourselves, of our lineages that have been silenced, and the parts of ourselves that have been silenced to ourselves. And so how do we work with this, you know, this reclaiming energy with Mars and Uranus? It's radical, it's authentic. And especially there, what wants to break free? There, what part of myself, and this is coming from Taurus, this is embodied, you know, this is Uranus, who is also moving to new territory in the sign of Taurus, and then it's going to go retrograde at 27 degrees, and it's going to go back and talk with Algol again. And so this is a first time that we're kind of coming into Uranus here conjunct Algol with Mars, bringing a drive, bringing a new drive to a part of us that has most likely been silenced, is longing for an authentic wake up. Probably a bit radical in terms of what society says, and especially here in Taurus, right? Taurus can get painted into very traditional boxes. Taurus can get painted into, it needs to be pretty, it needs to be proper, it needs to be luscious and extravagant. Algol And Mars and Uranus are busting that box open. Give us the raw rewilding of Taurus energy. Give it what is in our body that connects when we walk barefoot with the earth. Give us that rewilding energy. And how do you want to feel that? How do you want to claim it? There is something that is primal about this energy. And you want to feel into yourselves, feel into your body, and welcome that. And that might be disruptive to certain parts of our lives, of our relationships. And when we're co-creating in an honest spiritual awakening path, we acknowledge that. And then we do the work and we look at little bits that are falling apart. And I think it is really important to acknowledge that while this is happening, especially while it's building to that kind of July 15th moment of the exact conjunction at 26 degrees, there is a grand trine going on between some pretty important archetypes: Pluto, Sedna, and Black Moon Lilith. Welcome, the reclaiming energy. Okay, and so here I just want to insert that I work with true Black Moon Lilith. If you don't know what that means, that is okay. And so if you work with the mean Black Moon Lilith is a point where the moon is furthest from Earth and therefore the darkest. And so that point is mathematical and it's always shifting. And so some astrologers work with an average, and that kind of has a nice, neat way of Lilith moving from sign to sign. Because when you work with her true point, she's always shifting. And so she comes into Libra, but then she goes back into Virgo. And so regardless of that, during these days, there's a trine of Lilith in Libra, Black Moon Lilith in Libra, Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, and Sedna, who's just moved into Gemini, okay, at the very beginning of those signs. And working with true Black Moon Lilith, that's going to hold for the building of this kind of climax of Uranus, Mars, and Algol, and then she's gonna move. But that's pretty significant because it's kind of like this beautiful supportive air trine that's all about reclaiming, that's all about transformation, that's all about claiming, especially with Black Moon Lilith and Libra, the parts of ourselves that we've been othered from, the parts of ourselves that aren't pretty in those kind of neat box, totally constructed, actually constructed by what we call the male gaze through media, totally constructed ideas of what pretty is, and just reclaiming the parts of ourselves that are real, the parts of ourselves that are raw. You know, Pluto retrograde at the beginning of Aquarius is a bit raw. Sedna has just moved into Gemini. And again, Sedna is that galactic energy, but when she's talking directly with a small orb, it brings it into this personal kind of way of working with it in our collective psyche, and then in our embodied consciousness and our embodied psyche. And that's happening during this moment. And so there really is this very supportive energy, as long as we are willing to be honest with ourselves, as long as we are willing to peel back the layers and see what's being. It's when we resist that, and it's when we're probably going to see people resisting, and our governments resisting by pushing through, because that is something that Mars can try and push through, and it cannot acknowledge that Uranus is the mighty awakener and it needs to surrender, you know. And so it's that pushing through, and it's trying to go too fast. It's like when folks really need to rest and instead they go for a run, right? Did that in my 20s all the time. I had an overuse injury from it. And it's like, really, we need to rest. And so it's resting, and then in that, you know, moving slowly, but resting. And then from that place with this beautiful air trine, the insights can come, and they are all about reclaiming and transformation. And it's quite powerful. It's a powerful week ahead of us. And the other thing that I would love to mention to you is Venus, okay? Divine feminine energy, more of it. So she's going to make her move from Cancer into Leo. And we had Mercury do this past week. And now Venus is going to do this. The sun will do it when it shifts into Leo season. That comes just after our full moon. And 29th degree of Cancer is trining our Neptune, who just went retrograde. And then from there, it moves into its exact opposition of Pluto. And the dates for you for this are, it's going to enter Leo on the 11th, okay? The 11th of July. And so it's going to be building. That trine is going to be building before that so Venus at the final degree of Cancer, trine that, you know, Neptune retrograde. Again, this is slow down energy, but it's beautiful as long as we're willing to slow down and see what's emerging, you know, see what's coming up in dreams, what's coming up in my emotions. This is like ethereal spiritual values that want to be honored, that want to nurture us. Dreams could be nurturing, even if they're a little out there, you know, but it's allowing the nurturing to come in a way that has a sacredness to it, because we're talking about the final degrees of both of these signs, and we're talking about Venus. And then she leaves that trine with Neptune and she comes into the opposition in the first, you know, in the first degrees of Leo, opposite Pluto, who's retrograde in Aquarius. And there's this breakthrough, you know, so it's like allowing the opening. And when we move through that soft opening, that also could be potentially confusing, especially if we're moving too fast. That's the Neptune retrograde. But when we slow down, and we're slowing down because we're working with Mars and Uranus and Algol, when we slow down, that's when the opening comes and we just receive. And then something wants to break through. And that's Venus opposite Pluto. And it's not just Venus opposite Pluto, it's Venus sextile Sedna, right? Because Sedna's there in Gemini, trining Pluto. And so there again, that breakthrough wants to be about transformation. It wants to be about deep, deep, deep reclaiming. If Sedna is new to you, I am linking the video that I made on her, or if you even just want to revisit that message of her, because it's a deeply powerful message as she's coming into Gemini. That again, you know, it's kind of like it comes through in waves, because it really comes through when she's talking to something directly in the transits, or of course if we're journeying with her in a transit to our personal chart, then we're working with her there. But it's important because it's deeply transformative and reclaiming energy. And with Pluto and Sedna, we're talking about reclaiming and healing archetypal wounds. Okay, these are deep wounds. And with Venus coming into Leo, there is a breakthrough to claim our passion. There is a breakthrough in the awareness that reclaiming and healing is not just sitting in a chair being asked or guided into the horrible parts of our life. It is reclaiming joy. It is breaking through and letting go of ideas of what healing is, of ideas of what we've been taught about healing, and reclaiming our joy and reclaiming our passion and reclaiming our creativity and our values around creativity. And that is all here. And sometimes it's harder to reclaim the joy. Sometimes reclaiming the joy goes right along with reclaiming the wild parts of ourselves, of the rewilding that Mars and Uranus and Algol are really talking with, and then bringing the Black Moon Lilith energy, bringing the Sedna energy, bringing the Pluto energy. And Venus comes in and she's like, yes, give it to me, because I'm going to turn this into the most beautiful art or poetry or just dance with life that is possible. And it is juicy. It's a juicy, juicy week, and is a big week. So I'm going to link the video to Sedna if you want to see that, or you want to just deep dive into that archetype again, because she is really something. And I'm going to see you soon, and be well. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.